Hello and welcome, and blessings and peace be upon you all. Welcome to my very first English speaking video, and the first of its kind channel where I help you navigate your relational challenges based on the current astrological transits. My name is Venus. I am a UK qualified psychosexual and relationship therapist, an esoteric astrologer, and a teacher of the mysteries. Altogether a alchemical badass. Virgo sun and moon. Scorpio rising, which means I will go deep and I will be precise and I will not leave anything important on the surface where it cannot do any real work. This full moon called me to finally share what I've spent years accumulating, because I know how rare it is to find someone who sits at the intersection between clinical therapy and astrological wisdom. Most astrologers are not therapists. Most therapists have never seriously studied the sky. I live in both worlds. And this channel is what happens when those two worlds finally start speaking to one another. This particular full moon could not have chosen a more perfect moment to begin. So if this resonates with you, please subscribe and leave a comment, a like, a share. It makes a huge difference, especially for someone like me who's only just beginning. And I have so much to share with you. Tell me your rising sign and what lands for you with this video. I read everything. This channel grows through you and our genuine conversations, and your feedback makes it even better every single time. So let's begin. Relationships are the ultimate alchemical crucible, in case you didn't realize. Every single person you draw into your life, every significant connection, every love, every rupture is a direct mirror to your own soul. But the mirror is not a regular mirror. Think of a prismatic mirror, a mirror that bends light, that can make you appear larger than you feel or smaller than you are, depending on the angle, of course, depending on which part of yourself is standing in front of it, your truth or your shadow. Carl Jung called this projection. He said we do not fall in love with a person, not initially. We fall in love with the parts of ourselves, the unlived parts, the longed for parts, the parts we haven't yet had the courage to claim, that we see reflected in someone else's eyes. For a while, this reflection is intoxicating. It feels like recognition. It's like finally being seen and heard for the first time sometimes. But relationships have a second act. And in the second act, the projection begins to lift. The real person starts to show through the mirror. And we are asked, perhaps for the first time, do I actually love who this person is? Or have I been in love with what they showed me about myself? That question, that exact question, is what this full moon is placing in front of all of us right now. This full moon is in Libra, and Libra is the sign of relationships, of balance and harmony, of the profound human longing to be met by another person fairly, honestly, and completely. The scales are how our relationships are measured, and the ruler of Libra is Venus, planet of beauty, yes, and of course love, but also of justice, of fairness, of worth, towards others as well as towards ourselves. But this full moon arrives with the scales already skewed, because facing the moon from across the sky in Libra is Aries. We don't just have the sun, we also have Saturn and Neptune alongside it. Three bodies gathered together, pressing their full weight against this poor Libra moon. So let's make this a bit more human. The moon in Libra is someone sitting across a table from the person they love, reaching for connection, trying to find the fair and honest and kind way to say what needs to be said. And on the other side of that table, there is the weight of time, Saturn, the structure that has calcified, the rules that were never agreed upon but somehow became law. There is also fog, Neptune, the idealization that makes the fortress look sometimes like a person and sometimes like a mirage. And there is the raw, uncompromising self, the sun in Aries, which had been patient, which is no longer patient. And then, squaring both the moon and the sun, is Jupiter in Cancer. He's squaring the entire picture, flooding the room with feelings, with ancestral memory, with the knowledge that this tension didn't begin recently. It has roots, old roots. The wound being activated at this full moon learned its shape somewhere very early on, possibly somewhere you have never fully looked at or even lived yourself. Jung would call this the complex, the emotional knot that formed in childhood, around love, around safety, around whether you were truly wanted, that now runs like an invisible script beneath every significant relationship you enter. You think you are choosing freely, but the complex is casting. This full moon is switching on the light in the room. And you can see elephants everywhere. So this full moon tells us the feeling of this full moon, but it's Venus who tells us the meaning of it. And Venus arrives at this moment already open because she has just passed through a conjunction with Chiron in Aries. Chiron is the wounded healer, the wound of self-erasure, the ancient accumulated hurt of having your desire treated as inconvenient, or of having learned through experience and through repetition, through the slow conditioning of relationships that required you to be smaller, that love means making yourself manageable, palatable, safe to receive. She carries that fresh wound directly into a square with Pluto in Aquarius. And Pluto does not wait, and he's not merciful either. What Pluto is doing to Venus here is not random destruction, though. It is the kind of dismantling that knows exactly what it is removing, surgical, and also knows exactly why. It is pressing on the Chiron wound deliberately, because what has not been fully felt cannot be fully released. And what cannot be released will keep choosing the same relationship, wearing a different face until it's finally seen clearly. You can track back and trace how your patterns have been in your previous relationships, and that wound will stare at you now squarely in the face because Venus has nowhere to hide. In therapeutic terms, this is the repetition compulsion, the unconscious loyalty to the familiar wound. We do not repeat painful relationship patterns because we are broken. We repeat them because the psyche is attempting every single time to resolve something it's never got to resolve at the source. Pluto squaring Venus is the moment that mechanism becomes visible. The choking sensation many of you are feeling right now is in your closest relationships, is in your body, in the parts of you that know something is off, something has to change, but cannot yet see what it is. This is not a sign that there's something wrong. It is a sign that something is completing its pattern, and it's time now to do something about it. And so here, the sky, as well as show us the problem very clearly, it also shows us the way out very clearly. In this very rare occasion, it doesn't always do that, by the way, but it is this time. And that's why we really have to pay attention, because the sky is actually showing us the way out. The first way out, that's right, there's more than one way. The first way out is Mercury in Pisces trining Jupiter in Cancer. If Pluto is the pressure, Mercury trining Jupiter is the exhale. Mercury in Pisces doesn't communicate through argument or logic. It communicates through feeling, through the willingness to say the true thing gently rather than the defended thing loudly. And Jupiter in Cancer receives that communication with the full depth of emotional intelligence, with the capacity to hear not just the words, but the wound underneath the words. This is the sky telling you, talk, speak, communicate. And I want to be precise about what communication actually means, because most of us were never taught it properly and think that we are communicating effectively when we're not. Communication is not presenting your case. It is not waiting for the other person to finish so that you can correct them. It is not defending your intentions while dismantling their experience. Real communication has foundational elements. Number one, listening. Not to respond, but to understand, to empathize, allowing yourself to actually feel what the other person is carrying, validating, acknowledging their reality even when it differs from yours, and hearing exactly what it is being said, not what you hear or you fear being said, not what you assume is being said, but what is actually being expressed. And for that, you required number two, presence, being fully present in the space with your partner. There is nothing equal to it when it comes to healing our relationship wounds. Being present doesn't mean bringing your entire baggage into the space, but coming in clear, like a clean mirror, and just listening and being one with the speaker of the experience. It is perhaps the most difficult thing two human beings can do for each other. And is also, when it happens, the most transformative. And Pluto squaring Venus is not going to settle for anything less than transformative. Now, this square between Venus and Pluto is going to last us for a while. So whatever you're going through this full moon is going to come to a crescendo, yes, but also is going to have chapters, ongoing chapters for the next few days and perhaps even weeks. If you feel this full moon is activating something in your relationship that is bigger than the two of you can navigate alone, please consider working with a therapist, a relationship therapist, or an astrotherapist like myself, who can illuminate not just what is happening between you, but also why this particular wound is being activated at this time, why particular patterns are persistent in your relationships, whether in this transit or other transits, and in this season of your life specifically, because we all go through different seasons or throughout our lives, and some seasons cause us to rift apart. But the intention is not necessarily to end the relationship, but to end the relationship as it is right now. And therefore be ready to die kill the relationship as it stands, and allow parts of ourselves who have enabled what shouldn't have been enabled, allow those parts to die, and therefore be reborn into a new self, a new transformed way of being that enables you to relate and connect with the other person in a much healthier and much more sustainable way. So the sky also offers us a second direction, and it is equally valid, equally necessary for some of you as well. Mars sextile Uranus and Taurus. Mars is will, the capacity to act, the part of you that knows what it needs even when the mind is still negotiating. Uranus is liberation, the sudden, clean break, the window that opens in a room that has been sealed for too long. It is the one that will liberate you from patterns that you're not able to liberate yourself from. A sextile is an open door. It's an opportunity. It does not force, but for those who are ready, for those who have spoken and been met with silence, who have tried and been met with the same wall, who have bent and adjusted and accommodated until they can no longer recognize themselves in the mirror, this transit is permission. Leave. Find your freedom. Stop trying to force something that has completed its purpose. And I want to say this without judgment, because this is where the psychology matters enormously. Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming fully yourself, of integrating the shadow, reclaiming the projection, and arriving at a self that is whole rather than performed. Relationships are one of those primary crucibles of that process. They show us ourselves. They ask things of us that no one else can. But sometimes a relationship has given everything it was capable of giving you. Sometimes the most loving and courageous thing is not to stay and work harder. It is to recognize that two people have taken each other as far as they can go together, and to realize that releasing each other into the next chapter of their separate becoming is what is necessary. And this is not failure. This is completion. And this full moon is a full moon of completion. Venus sextiling North Node in Pisces is the confirmation of this. The North Node is the soul's direction in this lifetime, collectively and personally. And Venus moving through everything Chiron opened and Pluto's pressing on is standing on that axis. She has a purpose inside this difficulty, and she's not merely surviving. She is teaching through it. The South Node in Virgo names what is leaving, which is love as anxious attachment or anxious service. Love that catalogs and earns and withholds until it calculates that is safe enough to give. The North Node in Pisces names where we are going, towards love as something oceanic, boundless, the kind that cannot be transacted or owned, the kind that begins in the full knowledge of your own worth and moves you outward from the ground. As I've said previously in my courses and my online platforms, the fixed signs are changing dramatically because of Pluto in Aquarius, particularly when it comes to, for example, in Taurus, how we value ourselves, how we value anything in life, actually. Right now, everything that's happening in the world is destroying the systems that insisted on human beings being replaceable, being treated as cattle, being considered basically clogs in the cycle of production. That measure is no longer going to be accepted moving forward. The future isn't holding that frequency anymore. And so that change is coming about through us. And you're going to see the roots of it and the seeds of it in our relationships. So what's happening to Venus right now is that she is recalibrating her value system. She is thinking about what truly matters. Even though Taurus is a very materialistic sign, even how she sees materialism is changing. Is it worth it? What am I giving up for it in return? Is that worth it? Is there a better way of measuring my own worth? And Venus in Taurus, she's rooted in the body, okay, in the earth, in what is physically and sensually and irreducibly real. She stands as the bridge between those two worlds, and she holds the ground while pointing towards the water. She chooses herself, not in anger and not in defeat, but in the full luminous knowledge of her own worth. And so whether this full moon is asking you to speak or leave, the root instruction is the same. Come back to yourself first. Everything else, the relationship, the decision, the conversation, everything flows from that return. And one final thing before we look at the rising signs. The moon in Libra is making trine to Pluto in Aquarius. A trine is grace, support arriving quietly from the unexpected angle. Pluto in Aquarius is the long, slow transformation of how we collectively understand love, belonging, freedom, and what we owe each other. And this deep generational force is in harmonious conversation with the emotional body of this full moon. What this means is that the personal reckoning you are moving through right now is not only personal, it is part of something much larger. The relational renegotiation this full moon is calling for is happening collectively. Millions of people are standing at the same threshold simultaneously. I cannot tell you how many of my friends have been calling me about their own relationships and what's been happening in just the last few days. The old templates, the relationships built on performance or on the suppression of self or for the sake of peace or on the confusion of love with the permission to take up space, those templates are being composted by history itself. You're not broken. You are not alone. You are just on time for your next evolutionary step. Now let's make this personal. Find your rising sign, your ascendant. And if you don't know it, you can calculate it free online with your birthday, time, and place. I'll add a link to my favorite website in the description below. It takes about 2 minutes and it will change how you read astrology for the rest of your life. I'm going to take you through each rising sign, where this full moon is landing in your chart specifically, and what it is personally asking you to do. I don't normally advocate for doing horoscopic and predictive astrology. It's feel that it reduces the value of the sacred science enormously. However, because I understand how intense relational crucibles are, I feel that it is not only necessary, but also very illuminating to use astrology as a tool to help guide us through the dark corridors of the soul and of the self, for the sake of raising awareness and for the sake of helping humanity move forward in a way that it can never move forward without creating healthy, truthful, loving relationships. So, without further ado, let's begin looking at your rising signs and how this full moon is impacting you and what is it asking of you. And here's the thing, wherever this full moon is happening on your chart, it is always going to be about relationships because it's Libra, and Libra is the sign of relationships. So let's go. Aries rising. This full moon is illuminating your 7th house of relationships, the house of the significant other. But the Sun and Saturn and Neptune are all in your 1st house. The self is crowded, restructuring, dissolving, and rebuilding simultaneously. And the relationship is being asked to hold someone who is in the middle of becoming someone new. Saturn in your 1st has been quietly dismantling an old identity, and Neptune has been fogging the edges of who you thought you were. And the person across from you may still be relating to a version of you that no longer exists. Mercury in your 12th house means that the words for what is happening haven't fully surfaced yet. They are forming in the dark. And Venus and Uranus in your 2nd house, your sense of worth and your assets, if you like, is being disrupted and liberated at the same time. What you thought you were worth in relationship is being revised upwards. Jupiter in your 4th house is your medicine. Go inward before you go outward. The conversation this full moon is asking for cannot happen until you have had it fully with yourself first, at the root, in the body, in the private foundation of who you are becoming. When you know what you are standing on, speak from there. The relationship can only meet the real you if the real you shows up first. Taurus rising. The wound the full moon is showing you is in your 6th house, the house of daily life, of the body, of the quiet labor that either sustains or depletes you. Venus and Uranus are both in your 1st house, your body, your identity, your physical presence. You are being asked to be more fully in yourself than your daily routines have been allowing. The Sun, Saturn, and Neptune in your 12th means something has been hidden, possibly from yourself even. A fatigue without a name, a sacrifice so habitual you stopped registering it as a sacrifice to begin with. Pluto in your 10th means the public role, the career, the way you are presented to the world, and the way the world sees you and uses you is being permanently transformed. The medicine here is in your 1st house with Venus, who is also sextiling the North Node in your 11th house. So the way out here lives inside your body, in what your physical self actually needs, actually wants, and actually refuses to keep pretending is acceptable. With the North Node in your 11th house right now, your soul's direction is towards other people, your community, your tribe, the ones who see the whole of you. Let the body lead you towards them. Gemini risings. The full moon is in your 5th house, the house of creative self-expression, of joy, of the part of you that creates purely because it is alive. Something is culminating here around how freely you have been allowed yourself to shine. Venus and Uranus are in your 12th house. The wound lives in the hidden rooms. Something about love, about worth, about desire has been operating below your conscious awareness, shaping everything without being named. And Pluto in your 9th means the philosophical story you have been living inside, the belief system that explains why things are the way they are, is being dismantled at the root. The medicine here is in your 2nd house with Jupiter, who is expanding your sense of worth right now. And Mercury is in your 10th house. Your voice, the way you communicate, is your most powerful public asset in this moment. North Node in your 10th says your soul's direction runs directly through your public expression, your vocation, your visible contribution to the world. The wound has been keeping the creative self hidden, and the medicine is to create publicly, not perfectly, public. Cancer rising. This full moon is illuminating your 4th house, home, roots, and the ancestral body. Exactly what you're about. Jupiter is in your 1st, expanding you in ways that may feel uncomfortable. You are becoming more than some of your closest relationships were built up to contain. And Cancer rising, you see right through things. The Sun and Saturn and Neptune are in your 10th house, meaning that this public role and the career and the face that the world sees you in is being reconstructed or restructured and simultaneously idealized. There is a tension between who you are being asked to be out there in the world and what you actually need in here. Pluto in your 8th, the house of deep merging and intimacy and shared resources, means something in your most intimate entanglement is being permanently transformed. What flows between you and the people closest to you is being examined at the level of its foundations. And the medicine is in Mercury in your 9th house and the North Node as well. Your soul's direction is towards philosophical expansion, towards meaning making, towards the bigger truth that sits above and behind the immediate pain. Venus and Uranus in your 11th, liberation is available through community, through finding your people, through the sudden recognition of where you actually belong. When the home feels uncertain, find your tribe. Leo risings. This full moon is illuminating your 3rd house of voice, communication, words, and the immediate environment, and as well as your relationship with siblings, perhaps. Something has gone unsaid for a long time. The Sun and Saturn and Neptune in your 9th mean your beliefs and your entire philosophical framework for understanding your life are being reconstructed or restructured. What you once knew to be true about love and relationships, about what you deserve, is changing, and the language hasn't caught up yet. Pluto in your 7th house is the most significant placement for you. Pluto in the house of the significant other, permanently transforming the nature of your closest relationships. This is not a surface negotiation. This is a death and rebirth of what partnerships mean to you. Venus and Uranus in your 10th, the public role and career that you're playing, are also being disrupted and liberated. How you are seen in the world is changing forever. Now, where is the medicine? Your medicine is in the 8th house, where the North Node is as well. Your soul's direction runs through depth, through intimacy, through the transformative conversation that goes below the surface. The medicine is not more careful communication. It is more honest communication, the true thing, said from the place that knows, not the place that manages. And Leo risings, your relationships are being changed forever, because with Pluto running through Aquarius, through your 7th house, you are aligning with your true tribe, aligning with the people who are going to be with you, with the person who you are becoming in the world. And therefore, expect people to fall off and expect new and stronger relationships to form in their absence. Virgo risings. The full moon lands in your 2nd house, the house of self-worth, what you value, what you have quietly come to believe you deserve. And the South Node in your 1st house, directly in the house of self, let this land. Okay, because the South Node has been going through Virgo for the last year and a half almost, and it has been dismantling the very powerful and dense structure, or rather prison, you have been building for yourself your entire life. The point of release of what is ready to be composted rather, is the Virgo pattern itself, the anxious service, the martyr, the sacrificial lamb, the earning of love before receiving it, the meticulous cataloging of whether you have done enough, been enough, given enough, or this enoughness enough. Pluto in your 6th means the daily life and the routines, the health, the body is being transformed. The body is already speaking. The Sun, Saturn, and Neptune in your 8th mean the deepest entanglements, whether they're financial, emotional, or intimate, are being restructured in ways that cannot be reversed. Now, where's your medicine? The North Node and Mercury are in your 7th house. Your soul's direction is towards genuine partnership. But genuine partnership requires a self that has not been preemptively apologized for. Venus is in your 9th house, and the wound of worth, rather, is being met by a new philosophical understanding of what love actually is. Mercury in your 7th, the significant other, or the inner conversation about partnership, is where the healing language lives right now. You are allowed to arrive as you are, completely, without earning it first. I know, radical. Libra rising. The full moon is in your 1st house, in your body. You are the star of the show, Libra. It's on your face. There is nowhere to put this one. There is no way to make it about anyone else except for you. The Sun and Saturn and Neptune are in your 7th house, the house of the significant other. 3 bodies gathered in the house of the other, pressing against the sense of yourself. This is the Libra wound at its most precise. The identity that has been built in relation to others rather than from the inside out. Venus and Uranus are in your 8th house, meaning that intimacy, the merging, the shared depth, etc., is being disrupted and liberated simultaneously. Something is about how you have been losing yourself in deep connection is becoming visible. Pluto is in your 5th house, the house of creative self-expression and joy, means the way you express yourself, the way you allow yourself to be seen creatively and personally is being permanently transformed. The medicine is in your 6th house, Mercury and the North Node, where your soul's direction is through the daily practice of embodiment, of showing up in the small, repeated, ordinary moments as yourself. Not the diplomatic self, not the self that reads the room, not the self-effacing, other-pleasing self, the actual self. Jupiter is in your 10th house. The public role is expanding. The world is ready for a version of you that does not negotiate itself before it walks through the door. Scorpio risings. This full moon is in your 12th house, the house of the invisible, of what is hidden, of what runs beneath the surface of every relationship you have ever had. A full moon in the 12th house is a light turned on in a room you forgot existed. The Sun and Saturn and Neptune in your 6th house means that your daily life and the routines and your health and your body, the quiet labor of every day, is where the fog and the structure are colliding. The body is carrying something the mind has not yet named. And Venus and Uranus in your 7th house, the significant other, the mirror, are being disrupted and liberated. The person across from you may be changing the ways or in ways you did not anticipate, or the way you see them is changing. Pluto in your 4th, your home and your roots and your foundation, is being permanently transformed. Something at the very base of your inner architecture is being rebuilt. The medicine is in your 5th house. Your soul's direction is towards creative expression, towards joy, towards the part of you that exists for no reason other than to be alive. This is the medicine for your 12th house wound. No more introspection, but genuine, embodied, unself-conscious expression. And Jupiter in your 9th house, the philosophical meaning, the bigger picture, is expanding. The pattern you are finally seeing in the 12th house is not a life sentence. It is the last standing between you and a completely different story. Sagittarius risings. The full moon is happening in your 11th house of community and belonging and the vision you hold for the future and the people who share it. Something is culminating in where you belong and who you are. The Sun and Neptune and Saturn in your 5th house of creativity means that your creative self, the joyful self, that expresses purely for the love of it is being restructured and simultaneously fogged. You may have lost the thread of what genuinely brings you joy beneath everything that is required of you. Venus is in your 6th house. The daily life, the body, and the health are being disrupted. The routine that has been containing you is breaking open, finally. Pluto in your 3rd house, the house of your voice, of your communication, and of your immediate environment, is permanently transforming how and what you speak. In other words, your voice is being liberated. Congratulations. Your medicine is in your 4th house of home. Your soul's direction is inward, towards your roots, towards ancestral foundation, towards remembering who you are, towards the private self that has perhaps been neglected in the pursuit of the communal vision. Jupiter in your 8th, offering depth and transformation and the intimacy that changes you, is expanding. The medicine is not to find a new community. It is to go deep enough within yourself that the right community finds you. Capricorn risings. The wound is in your 10th house. It's the most public placement possible. Something is culminating in your career and your reputation and how you are seen in the world. It is not entirely private, unfortunately. Jupiter is also in your 7th house of partnerships, expanding and activating your closest relationships. The tension between what you are being asked to be publicly and what your relationships actually need from you privately is acute. And the Sun and Saturn and Neptune are in your 4th house, which is where your means and foundations are, the home, the inner life, the ancestral patterns, is all being restructured and fogged at the same time. Venus and Uranus are in your 5th house of creative expression and joy. They are also being disrupted and liberated. Something about how freely you allow yourself to simply enjoy being alive is being permanently revised. Where is your medicine? It's in your 3rd house of voice. Your soul's direction is through the voice, through the local, the immediate, the daily communication. The medicine is not a grand public gesture. It is the honest conversation in the room you are already standing in. Pluto in your 2nd means your worth, your self-worth, your deepest sense of who you are and what you bring to the table and what you deserve is being permanently transformed. Let it be transformed upwards. Aquarius risings. This full moon is happening in your 9th house. Belief, philosophy, and the story you live inside, the meaning you make of your life, is all happening there. Something you have believed about love and relationships, a fundamental principle you have organized your relational life around, is completing a cycle. Pluto is in your 1st house. It has been transforming your identity and your body and your very sense of self for years. That transformation is now meeting Venus and Uranus in your 4th house. The home, the foundation, the most private interior. The self that is emerging from this Pluto transit needs a different kind of home, different beliefs, different foundations. The Sun and Saturn and Neptune in your 3rd means your voice, your daily communication, the immediate environment is being restructured and simultaneously dissolved. Words that once came easily may feel inadequate now. That is not a loss. It is a precision arriving. Now, the medicine is in your 2nd house. Your soul's direction runs through worth, through the embodied, grounded sensory knowledge of what you actually value and what you are actually worth, not philosophically, in the body. Jupiter in your 6th, your daily life and the health and the service that you provide is expanding. The medicine is in the ordinary, in what you choose to do with each ordinary day while the extraordinary transformation is underway. Finally, last but not least, Pisces rising. This full moon is happening in your 8th house, the house of deep merging and intimacy that transforms. What happens when two worlds genuinely touch and are permanently changed by the contact? This is the most profound placement of all the 12, I would argue. The 8th house is where we discover the difference between genuine intimacy, the meeting of two whole people and who are being transformed by the contact, and their dissolution, the Pisces wound, the disappearing, the losing of the thread back to oneself in the act of loving another. The Sun, Saturn, and Neptune are in your 2nd house, meaning your self-worth, your resources, your sense of what you bring is being restructured and fogged at the same time. You may be struggling to see your own value clearly right now. And Venus in your third mean that the wound lives in the voice, in what you have been unable to say, in the words that didn't come, in the communication that collapsed under the weight of what was actually felt. Uranus is also in your third house. The house of voice is being liberated. Suddenly and unexpectedly, you are going to start speaking up. Now, the medicine is in your first house, your soul's direction, your self-worth, or how you see yourself in particular, as a distinct individual, irreducible, you. And so Mercury transiting and the North Node transiting in your first house are giving way to your voice, the way you are feeling towards your own personal truth, how you see and identify yourself right now. Jupiter is in your fifth house of creative expression and joy, the part of you that exists for no reason but to be alive, and that is expanding. Pluto in your 12th house means that the unconscious itself is being transformed. What has been dissolving within you without your knowledge is becoming visible. The medicine is not in love less, but it is in know yourself so completely and so precisely that your dissolving into another becomes a sovereign choice rather than an old automatic pattern. Of course, a little caveat. These are all very generic expressions of what is possible and what is going on for you, even if it resonates deeply. But for accurate and precise, the kind of precision that Virgo offers, please check out my services and book either a natal reading or a synastry reading or relationship therapy in order to really go in deeper and tackle these relationship issues and shadows being presented to you at this moment in time. Wherever this full moon finds you, whatever it is illuminating, I want to leave you with this. The scales are not broken. They are being recalibrated at the level of what you actually believe you deserve, at the level of what you are willing to receive, at the level of who you are fully, without apology, without making yourself smaller so that someone else feels more comfortable. That recalibration is not a loss. It is a homecoming. Bear in mind that as the world around us and the systems are collapsing and a new earth is emerging, this new earth is not going to emerge through new systems alone. Who's going to create those systems? It is us. It is you and I. And if we cannot create a system within our own relationships where we are living in peace and harmony with one another at close proximity, then what chances do we have of creating a whole world of loving human beings, a species that does not allow the enslavement of one people over another? If this reading has resonated with you, please subscribe and please leave me a comment and please send me an email. If you have a conflict going on with you and your partner and you want some insight, feel free to send me your birth date, time of birth and place of birth, along with your spouse or partner, and obviously the places where you were born and where you're living right now, for me to have a look at what's going on. I won't give you a full reading on a video, of course, but I'll share enough for you to know what the main conflict is and how best to approach it. Until the next transit, be blessed, be joyful, and be love. See you next video.